I heard the slight taking of the line, the click as something investigated my bait. Then it takes the bait and the fight is on. The boat shakes violently as the colossal beast desperately tries to free himself. But alas, his struggle is futile. He eventually succumbs to my fishery prowess and rises to the surface. But just as I am about to see the beast, my daydream ends. Or night dream, as I should say, although I was not asleep. Ever since I started my vacation in Alaska, I have had trouble getting to sleep. I flew by myself, and that was an adventure in and of itself. It stays light outside until almost 1 a.m., Alaska time. Coinciding with my bubbling excitement for my fishing trip tomorrow, I ended up not getting a lot of sleep. The thrill of deep sea fishing was just too much. So far, my vacation had been anything but boring. I hiked, took a trolley to the top of the mountain, at the end of my vacation, I was going to take a small plane to a lodge. The thought that I wouldn't catch anything was in my mind, but I chose to shove it in the very back and ignore it. Eventually drifted to sleep. I woke with a start. Today was the day I finally got my driver's permit. Sorry, I meant fishing. It was a beautiful day in Juneau, Alaska. I was thinking of another life-altering event. I got in a quick shower and I grabbed some breakfast. All that was left to do was drive to Bob's house and get our gear together. We'd done most of it the night before, but there were just a few things that needed to be finalized. Bob was my grandfather's friend. He was a nice guy and fun to be around, also co-owner of the boat that my grandfather had. After we got everything ready, we started heading to the boat. We passed my grandfather's Range Rover, which was broken down at Bob's house. "Good morning, you piece of crap Range Rover," Bob said. I laughed at that. Bob was a pretty funny guy. We got to the dock and started loading things. The water was different than most of the oceans I've been to. It was bleak and empty, but it wasn't totally void of life. There were seabirds, small schools of fish, and just a few sea stars. When everything was finalized, we headed off. It took us about an hour to get to the first spot. Along the way, we saw some sea lions and a whale. It had been a while since I had seen a whale, so I thought it was a pretty cool sight to see. We dropped the lines in the water. The sinkers we used were very heavy. It didn't take long to get a fish on the line, but it was only indicated by a slight tug. The fish that were biting were rockfish, and they only weighed about as much as the sinker. We were able to haul in about 10 in the first hour or so at least we knew we would eat well tonight. We moved on to a new spot. Rockfish were great and all, but they weren't what we were after. We didn't get many bites at the new spot until the horseflies came. It started off as no big deal. It was just 2 or 3 horseflies on the boat. We had bug spray and we were able to repel them or kill them. And then more came, a lot more. In a matter of 5 minutes, we had at least 300 horseflies swarming the boat. Our bug spray soon became obsolete as we were attacked. It didn't take long for us to decide to move to a new spot. I was feeling in somewhat of a dire situation. We weren't catching any trophies and were being attacked by a swarm of evil horseflies. And then my line bent like a paperclip. The line started screaming as the fight was on. The others were somewhat slow to react. I yelled fish on, but they must have thought it was just another rockfish. So this time, I emphasized the word fish. They all eventually got their lines out of the water so I was free to move around the boat and follow the fish. It was unimaginably heavy. At times, I felt like I had attached my hook to a wall and I was trying to reel the wall in. Other times, I felt like the fish was tired and I was able to get a few feet of line. Anytime I was able to gain on the fish, it gave a powerful burst of energy, and there was nothing I could do but hold on to my rod as it took yards and yards of line. It did this at least 10 times. Soon, things started going my way. I started gaining more line and losing less line. I felt like as if I was as fatigued as the fish. My arms were tired and I could feel calluses and blisters forming on my hand. I was having trouble keeping a firm grip on the rod that I needed to get the fish in. The rod seemed to have been through a lot too, but it seemed more than capable of getting the fish in, as it had already been through worse. All that was left was to get the fish to the boat. Eventually, we saw an outline of the fish. Even though spatial reasoning is weird underwater, I could tell it was huge. It was somewhat circular, not narrow. We could instantly tell that it was a Pacific halibut, what we had expected it to be. It took some effort, especially since I was already tired. Whenever it got to the surface, I got a very good look at it. Halibut are flat, like flounder. Its white side was up, the side that it lays on the bottom of the ocean with. It seemed like it was about 5 feet long and about maybe 3 feet tall. Its teeth were about 2 to 3 inches long, and there were lots of them. I would hate to have gotten bitten by that thing. Getting the fish into the boat was somewhat difficult. I'd recently seen river monsters about a fisherman that died trying to get a large halibut into their boats. They are aggressive, powerful fish. My grandpa impaled the beast with a harpoon. A harpoon! A rope was attached to the tip of the harpoon, so we were able to string a rope through the fish and get it into the boat. It barely fit into the fish box, it was so big. We measured around 56 inches, and it weighed about 80 pounds or so. The rest of the day was slow, but enjoyable knowing that we had a successful trip. We caught a few more rockfish and another smaller halibut. As we traveled to new fishing spots, we saw more marine life. Turns out it wasn't the bleak, abysmal ocean I thought it to be. We saw sea lions, sea otters, and even a few whales. That fishing day was one of the best days of my life. I had a great experience with my grandparents and pushed myself to my limits. Through all the hardships of the trip, the horseflies, the hours of no action, and the struggles of catching the fish, I learned a good lesson. Some things are worth struggling for. I realized how worth it was when I actually got to eat some of the fish. It tasted great.